Dr.
We have
Anuradha,
60. We have 60 people entering at the moment.
yes, 70, I
Welcome.
guess.
Yeah.
We have reached
Welcome,
70.
Dr. Anuradha Veeravalli. Wonderful to see you. Anuradha, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sparing your time.
So, how is your center coming up, Anuradha?
It's not coming up at all. We are stuck with no contractors, and it's difficult.
Oh. So once it is ready, we would like to go and stay there for some time to read
Of course.
some of his stuff. आलोक जी नमस्कार।
नमस्कार नमस्कार। कहिए मनीष जी कैसे हैं?
बढ़िया, अपना कैमरा पे भी ऑन कीजिए, लोग देखें आपको।
अभी देखने लायक स्थिति में नहीं है।
ओके ओके, सॉरी टू से दिस।
नहीं नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, लेकिन मैं अभी जुड़ गया जल्दी से, कुछ थोड़ा सा हड़बड़ी में है।
डॉक्टर दिनेश कुमार इज आल्सो विद अस।
नमस्कार मनिंदर भाई।
नमस्कार नमस्कार दिनेश जी।
बाद में एंट्री नहीं होगी तो दिक्कत होगा, इसलिए जुड़ गया।
वो तो सही बात। The number is growing very fast, so we can wait for a couple of more minutes, Satish ji, then start.
हाँ, वीरेंद्रा का दोस्त बहुत है, वो लेफ्टिनेंट कर्नल के माध्यम से बुक किया। हो सकता है हम भी रिसेप्शन उसी में करें। उसका कारण ये है कि
Rajesh ji, your private talk is being public. I can see Dharmendra ji also around.
Yes. Dinesh ji, Dharmendra ji, so many friends. Welcome you all. Aryaman?
Yes, sir.
I think you can start in a few minutes.
Yes, sir. I have just activated the YouTube live stream, so if anyone has issues joining Google Meet, they can also access through YouTube live stream. I've shared the link on the chat box.
Okay.
There is some humming sound, Aryaman.
I think this is from someone else's device. Just a second. I think it's from Satish. Yeah, now it's fine. So you're on mute.
He's using two devices. Either one has to be kept on silent mode or at distance.
Yes, yes.
Okay. start, Aryaman.
All right, sir. All right. I hope everyone has joined. Good evening. My name is Aryaman Pratap Singh. On behalf of Gandhi Studies Circle, Aryabhatta College, University of Delhi, I welcome you all. In the ages of IQAC and in collaboration with Department of Political Science, we present to you this international webinar in collaboration with on the topic Religion as Source of Much War and Gandhi's Insights. And we have our speaker today with us, Professor Douglas Allen, the chair, Dr Manindra Nath Thakur, and discussant, Dr Anuradha Veeravalli. And without any ado, I would like to welcome the convener of Gandhi Studies Circle, Aryabhatta College, Dr Satish Kumar Jha, to say a few words.
Thank you, Aryaman.
सतीश जी इको हो रहा है
From Gandhi Studies Circle.
एक से आप बाहर निकल जाइए. Use only one device. There's an echo.
I think now it is okay.
Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you on behalf of Gandhi Study Circle. And good morning, Professor Douglas Allen. For him, it is perhaps the morning time. And good evening to all the participants in this webinar being organized by Gandhi Study Circle on the theme that religion as a source of much war and Gandhian insights. It's a matter of great pleasure and privilege, for me to welcome Professor Douglas Allen, a well-known Gandhian scholar, thinker, and a philosopher, who has kindly agreed to speak in today's webinar, which is being organized by Gandhi Studies Circle, Aryabhatta College. As you know, this religion, which is becoming today a source of much of the conflicts in today's world, and most importantly, terrorism of different hues is also emerging from this source, this base. Of course, terrorism doesn't have any religion, but nonetheless, religion is acting as an important ideological frame for much of the terrorist act in today's world. Particularly post 9/11, the entire world is basically seized of this matter. It is staring in our face. And it is in this context that Gandhian ideas, particularly to deal with not only religion, but all types of religious conflicts, become very significant. Who can be a better person to reflect on this theme this evening than Professor Douglas Allen, who has been continuously reflecting, writing, thinking about both religion as well as the Gandhian insights and Gandhian ideas. In fact, I'm equally delighted to have two other scholars with us, philosopher and Gandhian thinker Anuradha Veeravalli, to comment on Douglas Allen's paper, and also political scientist Manindra Nath Thakur from Center for Political Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, to chair today's session. So hopefully this evening will generate a lot of insights and a lot of debate, through this discussion, on basis of the presentation of Douglas Allen. Two of my colleagues, teacher in charge of political science department, because political science is also collaborating with Gandhi Study Circle, Anand Saurabh, and convener of IQAC, Aryabhatta College, Professor J.K. Singh, also join me in welcoming all of you. So welcome Professor Allen, Professor Anuradha Veeravalli, and Professor Manindra Nath Thakur to Aryabhatta College, particularly Gandhi, this platform, Gandhi Study Circle. And before I hand over the mic to Aryaman, I request the principal of our college, Professor Manoj Sinha, to welcome the guest and say a few words. Professor Sinha.
Thank you so much, Dr. Satish Jha. I have this pleasure of welcoming and saying good morning to Professor Douglas Allen. Welcome to this platform of Aryabhatta College, University of Delhi. For us, it's a good evening, but for you, a good morning, sir. And also welcome Professor Anuradha Veeravalli, who's going to be the lead discussant from our side today. And thank you, my dear friend and senior colleague, Professor Manindra Nath Thakur, for agreeing to chair today's session in this talk. I'm extremely thankful. I mean, there has been some interest during my research days as well as teaching days in Mahatma Gandhi and his thoughts, and worked a little bit on his environmentalism. So one has kept abreast with whatever thought processes, relevance have been there in the modern world around Mahatma Gandhi and his ideas. And it excites me that today's generation, that means the newer students who are coming into our college and the academic system, especially the undergraduate students who have joined us today, will have a lot to learn around the thoughts of Mahatma Gandhi, because he's one persona who sometimes starts to look, either irrelevant or, at times seems impossible to follow. And yet all of us have adopted one or the other thoughts from him, ideas from him, and tried to go through. I mean, today is not my day. Otherwise, I could have told you that there are so many ideas of his which seem so relevant in today's world, whether it is a geopolitical field of diplomacy, of interstate relations, or as environment today, and the ideas around that are coming up. So I thank Anand Saurabh, Professor J.K. Singh, and especially Dr. Satish Jha, who have all taken interest in organizing these talks, and my congratulations to both the Department of Political Science as well as Gandhi Studies Circle, who have chosen to organize this talk this evening for India and for this morning for America. And once again, I say welcome to all of you, and namaskar. Have a very good interaction this evening.
Thank you, Professor Manindra Nath. It would be, I would be taking a few minutes more, Douglas Allen, Professor Douglas Allen, because I need to introduce two dignitaries to our house. So we have with us, firstly, our discussant, Dr. Anuradha Veeravalli ji, who has taught us the Department of Philosophy at University of Delhi. And she is also a well-known philosopher and social theorist, and is also an internationally acclaimed writer, author, and editor. I'm also proud to welcome Dr. Manindra Nath Thakur again with us on various occasions. He has been part of Gandhi Study Circle, and he is just well known for his social science research methods, Marxist theory, Indian politics, and is also famous for his insightful articles in newspapers like Jansatta. And finally, I take this golden opportunity to welcome Professor Douglas Allen, who has served as Professor of Philosophy at the University of Maine for 46 years, and he has been Professor Emeritus now at Philosophy in September 2020. And he's also the chairperson he has also served as a chairperson for the department, and he has been an internationally acclaimed author and editor of 18 books and more than 150 book chapters and scholarly journal articles. He's often recognized as one of the world's leading scholars in phenomenology of religion and philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, and I am proud to welcome you, sir, again. I think without any further ado, we'll begin with the session. Before beginning, I think we have filled with the participants list. So I request everyone to join via the YouTube live stream. I'm sharing the link on the chat box so that you can also enjoy the session. The streaming is going on smooth, so you can enjoy the session and listen to the insightful words of Dr. Douglas Allen. Thank you. Manindra sir, you can commence the session.
Thank you, Rajman. Thanks for this opportunity to be part of this meeting. I'm very happy to announce and very excited about the presence of Professor Patricia Oberoi in this audience. Welcome, ma'am.
I hope Professor JPS Oberoi is also joining us.
Yes, he's here.
Is he? Oh, that's a great news.
That's very nice of you.
I think Professor Douglas Allen does not need any introduction to Indian audience and those who have been engaged with Gandhi. He has been present on so many occasions. He has been speaking since last many years in different parts of the country. And many students, young students, are deeply influenced by his ideas. I must acknowledge that I am also borrowing from him an idea that instead of being Gandhian, one has to be Gandhi informed. One has to have Gandhi informed perspective. which is a very, very interesting thing. We had a dialogue with him on terrorism and non-violence. And let me read out one small paragraph that will give you from his book. The book is called Gandhi After 9/11. Creative non-violence and sustainability. This creative idea of creative non-violence I find very exciting, and particularly for the group called Creative Theory, this idea is really very interesting. He says that Gandhi's writings, philosophy, practices, when selectively appropriated and creatively formulated and applied, are essential for formulating new positions that are more non-violent, more sustainable, and provide invaluable resources and hope for dealing with our contemporary personal, social, economic, environmental, and other crises. So this is a totalized ontology. It is not only about politics among the nations or politics in nation, but also our personal life. And this personal and political everything gets connected. Welcome, Professor Ellen, to this audience. I would like you to begin with your lecture. Any time you want to have a time frame?
Yeah, I'm just going to time myself here. Okay, so the welcome, namaskar. I want to thank the Gandhi Study Circle. I participated in many of them. The organizers, especially those at Aryabhatta College, and I especially want to thank Professor Satish Jha, who invited me, has been my contact, and very, very helpful for me in planning this. Originally, as some of you know, I was invited to be the keynote speaker at this time for a 3-day international symposium. And we were going to have the inaugural session now in the evening in India. And then the next 2 days, there was a fascinating program with a very exciting thing with many, many sessions. And then I learned perhaps 2 weeks ago that for reasons outside the control of the organizers, the 3-day symposium conference had to be canceled, postponed, and the hope is that it will be rescheduled. And then the next day, Professor Jha contacted me and said, the students and faculty and others were very disappointed, very keen to hear your keynote. Could you do a talk on a completely different topic that would not overlap with what you would have presented at the symposium? So this is how I said, fine. And this is how I proposed the topic, completely different, on religion as source of much war and Gandhi's insights. So this, and as prearranged, I'll present, I hope for maximum of 50 minutes. I think it'll be lively, engaged. And then I welcome the commentary, discussion, critiques, challenges, and I find I always have very lively discussions, and in fact, that's the part of the program that is the most rewarding for me. So the title, Religion as Source of Much War and Gandhi's Insights, raises many questions on topics that I find are often uncritically assumed, oversimplified, or completely ignored. For example, religious Much War and Gandhi's insights. Just what is religion? Right? What is religion? It's not a simple question, and it does not receive simple responses. What is war? What is war? Again, you'll see this is not a simple question. What is peace? What is violence? What is nonviolence? Which Gandhi? Says Gandhi's insights. Which Gandhi? Which Gandhi informed insights? And which Gandhian, non-Gandhian, and anti-Gandhian interpretations and practices of such Gandhi-informed insights? So I think I'll begin by presenting some personal background that you might find interesting that was very formative in my youth when I was 21, then mainly 22 years old, and was essential for my approach in this presentation today. Briefly, in 1963 and 1964, I was fortunate to have a special student teacher Fulbright grant, one that no longer exists, in which this was 1 week after I graduated from Yale, received my undergraduate degree. 1 week later, I was in India. And for the year, I was based in Benares and at Benares Hindu University, where I taught upper-level English and mainly immersed myself in the postgraduate PhD philosophy department of study. Now, it's very interesting for me to reflect back, and I've been to India so many times since then, probably 25 times, spent at least 5 years, have seen more of India than I have of the United States. But how Benares, BHU, and India has changed so much. Okay? The philosophy department at BHU was, in my view, the number one department in the country. It was the Vance Center of Philosophy. The head of the department was my mentor, T.R.V. Murthy, who had written a famous book that I knew on Madhyamaka Buddhism. And he was a South Indian, high Brahmin caste, Hindu, Advaitin, follower of Shankaracharya. This was a very large department at that time of very distinguished, of about 20 faculty members, most of whom were Advaitins, followers of Shankara. Benares, I might say also, was completely different and we thought Benares, unlike at that time Bombay, Calcutta, we said Benares will never change. We would go, for example, for 1 week without seeing one automobile. There were no malls, there were no, we would go down all the time to the Ghats, to the Ganga, and participate in very meaningful rituals, activities. It was a center for music, for culture, for flourishing, all of this as part of that past. So this was very important for me in a formative way. And let me say, with regard to Gandhi, in our philosophy, in all of my PhD postgraduate studies, Mahatma Gandhi's name was never mentioned. He was just not considered a philosopher or worthy of philosophical study. At the same time, Gandhi's presence was ubiquitous. I would say more than today. And Gandhi was everywhere. People would wear, all politicians and vice chancellors and others would wear their Gandhi caps, their khadi vest, and like our vice chancellor, who was a judge, retired judge, every week he would make the same ritual speech in the words of Bapu, in the words of the Mahatma, and so forth. And you often recognize, though, much of this were slogans, and even there was a lot of hypocrisy. People then would return often to their non-Gandhian and their anti-Gandhian values and life. So instructive for me that year was a text, Contemporary Indian Philosophy. It was published first in 1936. It was edited by Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan and Muirhead. Radhakrishnan at that time was well known, with his Oxford background. He wrote numerous works in English, whether small works like the Hindu View of Mind or larger works. And he was the president of India. When I went there, he was the president of India. And Pandit Nehru was still the prime minister. He passed away the next year. And Lal Bahadur Shastri from Benares became the new president. Well, if you look at this book, it's very informative of our topic today, because there were about 24 essays. Each of them averaged about 20 pages each. And there were essays in terms of most of the so-called big names in Indian philosophy at that time. For example, the first essay after Gandhi's name always appeared on the cover, the table of contents, and elsewhere first. His M.K. Gandhi was first. And then the first essay was by Rabindranath Tagore. And then there were other essays by Radhakrishnan, by K.C. Bhattacharya, by Ananda Kumaraswamy, by P.T. Raju, by my mentor, T.R.V. Murthy, and so forth. Now, what's instructive is this. Radhakrishnan invited, we know through the 100 volumes of the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi and other writings, many other writings, that Radhakrishnan reached out, greatly admired Gandhi, and Gandhi greatly admired Radhakrishnan. Radhakrishnan reached out to Gandhi, asked him to write an essay for contemporary Indian philosophy. Gandhi begged off. He said, I'm incompetent. I can't do that. I respect philosophers. I'm not a philosopher. But Radhakrishnan was persistent. He was persistent, wanted to have Gandhi's name. So Radhakrishnan finally said to Gandhi, I'll tell you what, I'll pose 3 simple questions, one-line questions for you. Just answer the 3 questions, and that'll be your contribution. Now, what's interesting is the 3 questions and Gandhi's 3 answers take less than 1 page, although that's the feature page, first page in the volume. What to me is very interesting, bearing on our topic today, is Radhakrishnan's 3 questions all are about religion. They're all about religion. The first question he asks Gandhi is, what is your religion? And Gandhi's response and responses to the 3 are very important for our topic today. what is your religion? Gandhi responds simply, my religion is Hinduism, right? Which is the religion with a capital R, religion, which is the religion that embraces the universal truth of all other religions. This is Gandhi's response. Okay, then the second question Radhakrishnan asks is, well, how are you led to your religion? How are you led to your religion? Again, Gandhi's brief response is so full of significant meaning. Gandhi says, I'm led to my religion, with a capital R, based on truth, with a capital T, Satya, and nonviolence, with a capital N, or ahimsa. And then Gandhi continues, he says, I used to say that God is truth. Truth is an attribute, along with many other attributes, divine attributes of God. And some religious believers still believe that, fine. But I have now reversed this. I prefer to say, right, not God is truth, but truth is God. Truth with a capital T is God. And truth is many other things. Gandhi said, I'm trying to be more inclusivist, more pluralist. I want to embrace the positions of those religious people who don't use God language or have different beliefs, and also atheists, agnostics, others who believe in truth, don't believe in God. But I can embrace that, and that is part now of my vision of truth. So, Gandhi then, the third question is, what is your religious bearing on social life? What is your religion's, capital R, bearing on social life? And here, again, very instructive, Gandhi says, well, in my religion, capital R, you have to lose yourself totally. As he writes elsewhere, reduce your ego to zero, to a cipher. You have to completely let go of any attachment to your ego. You have to become one with others, with the world, with the unity, the oneness of reality. And in that regard, what my religion involves is social service. How one unites with others through social service, sarvodaya, that idea, dedicated to the uplift, the well-being of all, especially those who have the least swaraj, the most suffering, the least freedom, right? And that's how, in fact, you are able to experience your unity with the interconnected oneness of all of reality, even if it seems to us at times as divided and many. Okay? So that encapsulates and expresses a lot of profound ideas that are developed then in thousands of pages of writings by Gandhi. So Gandhi, in thousands of pages, refers to religion and religions of others. In my understanding, Gandhi's approach, concepts, and practices regarding religion are very diverse, pluralistic, inclusivist, tolerant. Sometimes they are confusing, and sometimes they're contradictory. This has allowed Gandhi admirers, Gandhi critics, and others to focus on and privilege specific passages in presenting their positive and negative interpretations of the true Gandhi, embracing a Gandhian religion, who is sometimes amazingly insightful, sometimes ill-informed, sometimes revolutionary, and sometimes conservative and reactionary, sometimes most significant for us, India, and the world today, and sometimes seemingly hopelessly irrelevant. That is why my approach and interpretation is necessarily selective, focusing on what is most insightful, in my view, in Gandhi's perspective on religion, war, peace, violence, nonviolence, and related topics. Now, I want to simply mention that there are many unaddressed questions and insights regarding this topic that, because of time, I won't address, although in my other writings I spend a tremendous amount of time because they're very, very important concerns, challenges, and questions. So let me just mention, without developing a few, because they may be of interest or give thought for discussion or future reflections on your part. So, as seen in Gandhi's brief responses to Radhakrishnan, he uses religion with a capital R often. And what Gandhi usually means by this religion with a capital R is some pure, perfect, universal, spiritual essence of all religion and all religions. He often contrasts this with religion with a small r. And by religion with a small r, he means what 90% of us mean by religion. Namely, Gandhi means by religion with a small r, traditional religion, institutionalized religion, historically formed religion, culturally formed religion, linguistically formed religion, with its scriptures, its rituals, its hierarchies, and all of its practices. Okay? Now, so the question is, what is this religion with a capital R, and how does Gandhi know it? He claims to experience and know this. He has faith, absolute faith in this, but how does he know this religion? What makes this controversial and problematic is Gandhi keeps acknowledging that he only has temporary glimpses, temporary, quote, glimpses of such religion, pure spirituality, right? And then he returns to this spatial, temporal, conditioned, limited, finite, imperfect world. Gandhi makes the same point about religion with a capital R. When he talks about perfect nonviolence, perfect truth, perfect pure morality, ethics, even perfect satyagraha, perfect swaraj, perfect sarvodaya, and so forth, in which he says, at most we have temporary glimpses, right? He says, even he, as such a proponent of ahimsa, right, who believes in absolute, unconditional, pure ahimsa, he says he often miscalculates in this world sometimes even committing Himalayan blunders, quote unquote. And so it's a matter of my life as an experiment in truth, in which we often have failed experiences when it comes to how we in practice the perfect exemplary ideals of religion and other topics. So questions arise. Well, how do we relate religion with a capital R to all of the religions, religious beliefs, scriptures, practices, rituals with a small r? How, and Gandhi faced this challenge throughout, how does Gandhi, or how do we respond to those who reject any view of religion with a capital R? Or who reject any religion with a small r? Or what about the many religions, and Gandhi faced this from some forms of Christianity, Islam, and many other forms, that say, well, no, what you call our religions with a small r, actually are the perfect religion with a capital R. Our founders, our scriptures, our teachings, our revelations, and so forth, in fact, present the one and only exclusive absolute truth and reality. So these were challenges that Gandhi and we face. Okay, so let me move on and clarify a couple of key concepts. What do we mean by war and peace? Right? Violence and war. So let me just make a few clarifications as I use this. War is always violent, either directly or indirectly violent, overtly or covertly violent. War is always violent, but not all violence is war. Right? In fact, most forms of violence we would not want to classify as war. For example, a teacher might respond to a student using linguistic expression in a way that's angry or hateful or controls or intimidates, shames the student. For Gandhi, that is violence, but it's not war. Okay? So most human beings and religions easily affirm that they are against war and they are for peace. Right? Most human beings, most religions say that. In my approach, we need two clarifications as central to the topic of religion as a source of so much war. First, most human beings and religions, in affirming their commitment to nonviolence and peace, use these terms in very narrow and limited ways. In other words, they're opposed to overt physical acts of war, such as widespread killing of innocent civilians, mass genocide, torture, rape, war crimes, and blatant violations of human rights. However, consistent with Gandhi's insights, this is an important but small part of violence, war, peace, and religion. We must broaden and deepen our perspective. In addition to overt physical dimensions, religion, violence, war, and peace are multidimensional and structural. War, we and religions, for example, must include and transform inner war, psychological war, economic war, social and political war, cultural and religious war, linguistic war with language as a violent weapon of war, class and caste and gender and race as dimensions of war, and more. Second, again, is consistent with Gandhi's insights. Most human beings and religions seemingly against war, and even those that avoid glorifying war, use the key terms in very vague ways and qualify their doctrines, concepts, and practices in very diverse, often contradictory ways. For example, religions often uphold the view that war is tragic, but that war is sometimes necessary for peace. For example, and in anti-Gandhian ways, religions and others often uphold the view of peace as peace through strength. And strength is based on accumulating superior forces of weapons, nuclear force, and other multidimensional and structural violent relations so that they can threaten war as deterrents or go to war if necessary to impose their so-called peace. And of course, we've had thousands of years of religions that extol and glorify violence and war as revealed by and commanded by their God, their founders, their scriptures, as based on their views of ultimate reality in human nature, as essential for their salvation and the destruction of evildoers, infidels, non-believers. Gandhi, of course, radically opposes such dominant, traditional, contemporary views of religion. Okay, so then let's just spend a little time on religion as such a negative force and as a source of so much war. In terms of that I've already presented, one can appreciate why dominant religion has been and continues to be a source and justification for so much violence and war. Because of time, I won't present the endless examples throughout the world of how dominant religions are a source, promote, and justify so much divisiveness, hatred, violence, conflict, and war. By contrast, the nonviolent religious forces for peace and against war are usually rather passive, often silent, relatively powerless, and ineffective when compared with the actively engaged, overwhelming religious forces promoting violence and war. It is easy to conclude that when it comes to war, religion is a negative force and religion is an essential part of the problem and not the solution. What I now propose is to consider how M.K. Gandhi offers insights for providing structural and contextual openings for understanding ways that religion can also be a positive force in resisting war and for nonviolence and peace. So, in terms of Gandhi's insights on religion, nonviolence, and peace, in many hundreds of writings, Gandhi focuses on how religion focuses on religion, on how he is religious, how he is a Hindu, and how he upholds a very tolerant, pluralistic, inclusivist, nonviolent, anti-war, moral, egalitarian, service-oriented, action-oriented view of religion. However, it is not always clear what Gandhiji means or how his multiplicity of perspectives on religion hold together in a unifying, consistent way. In fact, many Christian, Muslim, and other religious believers have claimed that Gandhi Hinduizes or Vedantizes their religions in rejecting their exclusive absolute claims about their religion and their God as being the only truth and ultimate reality. So, let me just quickly delineate a few of Gandhi's formulations. In many passages, Gandhi expresses his personal preference for the non-dualistic, unifying oneness of Hindu Vedanta. In many passages, he says, well, this is my personal preference when it comes to the oneness, the unity of Atman, Brahman, and so forth. So many scholars have simply identified Gandhi on religion and related topics with Vedanta, right? And especially, there are many books and articles that identify this with traditional Advaita, founded by Shankara, and these writers are Shankaracharyans, and they interpret Gandhi as this is his view of the highest view, religion with a capital R. The highest view of spirituality is the non-dualistic Advaita. There have been some other scholars over the decades and recently who have affirmed, they say, yes, Gandhi believes the highest religion is Vedanta, especially Advaita, non-dualistic. But then they say, Shankara tends to present this world as Maya, as illusion. Shankara is not so concerned about transforming this world of violence, oppression, injustice, illusion. Shankara's project is how do we liberate ourselves from this world in order to achieve moksha, mukti. So what they have said, well, we have to supplement this. Gandhi is a Vedantist, but in the engaged, action-oriented, he's more like Swami Vivekananda and those formulations of more engaged Vedanta. So then, secondly, in far more passages, many times more passages, Gandhi also identifies his religion with a more theistic approach, as seen in his experiences, his faith, his daily prayer rituals, and other practices, embracing his favorite god, Rama, or other incarnations of Lord Vishnu, for example, as manifested as Krishna, the god central to Gandhi's favorite text, the Bhagavad Gita. So we have this second orientation of Gandhi towards his religion. And I just quickly might mention, there's some very dramatic, significant writings in which Gandhi focuses on Srimad Rajchandra, and who was a Jain, right? A poet, a mystic, a philosopher, and so forth. And Gandhi says sometimes that he never had a personal guru, but if he had, the closest would have been Rajchandra as his spiritual advisor and guide. So I might simply mention that in some very dramatic writings, when Gandhi especially was in South Africa, he wrote to Raj Chandra. And Gandhi, basically under the attacks on Hinduism and so forth by missionary Christians and others, Gandhi was full of doubt. Am I a Hindu? Do I even believe in God? So Gandhi wrote to Raj Chandra, and Raj Chandra sent back, very interesting, like 28 responses to questions. And what he basically tells Gandhi is, no, you can be a Hindu. Do not be ashamed of this. Be proud of being a Hindu. But you should be very patient. You should study Hinduism in depth. And this will also allow you to develop your position of ahimsa, of nonviolence. It will allow you to have a Hinduism that also embraces the insights and contributions of all other religions. So again, this was deeply formative in much of Gandhi's view of religion. And there are others, as you know. You could mention the influence of Lev Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy was so important on Gandhi, especially Tolstoy's The Kingdom of God is Within, and other publications. So, what I want to indicate simply is Gandhi repeatedly claims that true religion is dynamic relational force that is identical. For Gandhi, true religion, with a capital R, is identical with truth force, nonviolent force, love force, soul force, ethical, moral force, and so forth. Gandhi certainly recognizes that there is widespread institutionalized hierarchical religion that is violent, divisive, oppressive, exploitative, and unjust. But for Gandhi, this is false religion. False religion. So the question is, can true religion for Gandhi be effective? In fact, Gandhi claims that true religion is not only effective, but it is the strongest force that human beings can experience and express. The strongest force that human beings can experience and express. So the challenge for me is this: if that is the case, if true religion is the strongest, most effective force, then why is religion such a negative, powerful source of so much war, including in the world today? So what I'm going to do is end, and it looks like the timing is going to be perfect. I'm going to just end by sharing about 5 minutes that I formulated in how to deal with what I consider a very strong challenge to Gandhi on this topic of religion as a source of so much war and Gandhian insights. So it's extremely important to reflect on how and why dominant religious cultures and their dominant religious narratives are such a negative force in our contemporary world regarding issues of war and peace. It's also extremely important to reflect on how the less dominant religious cultures and their narratives can resist and change this so that they become stronger, positive forces today regarding issues of war and peace. In attempting to understand these very complex questions and formulating our most adequate answers, I propose that we need to contextualize our formulations and responses. Contextualized religion in the contemporary world and in the future is not absolutely dichotomized, as essentially or necessarily violent or nonviolent, warlike or peaceful, hateful and cruel, or loving and compassionate, divisive and intolerant, or unifying and mutually respectful, and so forth. If that is the case, why is religion today such an overwhelmingly negative force? To understand this, we need to contextualize our approaches and interpretations of religious and non-religious narratives, paradigms, phenomena, values, relations, structures, and practices, as they are interconnected with dominant and secondary economic, social, political, cultural, psychological, linguistic, educational, and environmental variables, forces, relations, and structures in our lives and in the contemporary world. In understanding religion as such a negative force, we must include the following, in my view, and more. We live in a corporate, capitalist, and globalized, multidimensional, and systemically structural world in which ego-driven greed and attachments are promoted, maximizing profits, and the expansion and domination of capital is more powerful than meeting the needs of disadvantaged and marginalized people and the well-being of all, in which the alienation, dehumanization, and anger of the dominated classes, castes, and others is exploited by diversionary demagogues and by the economic, political, and religious institutionalized powerful, in which the short-term imperatives and objectives of the dominant military-industrial complex, which should be expanded as the dominant interconnected military-industrial, consumerist, fossil fuel, nuclear, private war contracting, media, educational, and so forth complex, increasingly shape and dominate all areas of life, in which the dominant modern criteria are object-centric, thing-centric, objectified and fetishized, and dehumanized, amoral and immoral, violent, oppressive, exploitative, inequitable, and unsustainable, with their quantifying assessments of gross domestic profit, gross domestic product, individual and national and global development, wealth, success, and happiness. Only when we address these and related dominant contextualized forces in our contemporary world can we understand why dominant religion is such a negative force. It's also important to reflect on how the relations between the dominant and secondary contextualized forces and dominant and secondary religious cultures are dynamic, open-ended, complex, contradictory, and dialectically structured and related. Under different contextualized situations, the dominant-secondary relations can be transformed and even reversed. Not only are dominant and subordinate religious cultures shaped by the dominant economic, political, social, and other forces, but religious cultures can become the dominant forces, negatively and positively, causing, conditioning, and justifying other forces in our lives, in our world. For example, many jihadists and other religious warriors, but also saints, martyrs, and others are willing to die because of their religion, as was Gandhi. Many white supremacists, xenophobic nationalists, patriarchal misogynists, hierarchical caste and ethnic proponents, and even some powerful elite capitalists and militarists claim that their perspectives are based on their religious faiths, narratives, and cultures. The open-ended dynamic dialectical relation also holds true between the dominant and less powerful religious cultures in our contemporary world. In much of this presentation, I've emphasized dominant religion as a negative force, promoting and justifying so much violence, conflict, war, divisiveness, and intolerance. Nevertheless, under different contextualized situations, the dominant secondary relations between religious cultures can be reversed. Contextualized positive religious culture can become the strongest religious force in promoting and justifying a religious paradigm and narrative of nonviolent resistance and transformation, inner and outer peace, love, compassion, kindness, ethical living, multidimensional tolerance and mutual respect, selfless service, social justice, equality, the uplift and well-being of all, and organically interconnected sustainable living, enabling human and planetary development and flourishing. So the challenge today for religious and non-religious cultures, including those that embrace many of Gandhi-informed insights and other religious and non-religious insights regarding violence and war, is to envision a radically and qualitatively different paradigm shift with contextually significant perspectives, values, theoretical constructions, and active-oriented, engaged, transformative practices that are meaningful, offer hope, and inspire us with alternative, nonviolent, and peaceful ways of living. Central to the spirit of my presentation has been my conviction that we have the necessary experiences, values, knowledge, and human and other resources to engage cooperatively in desperately needed, more value-informed, more developed levels of existence in the world, including religions promoting nonviolence and peace informed by many of Gandhi's insights. So, thank you for your patience. And I hope that I offered at least some challenges, suggestions that will be helpful in terms of the commentary and the feedback, your questions, your interventions, your agreements and your disagreements. So at that, I'll turn it over to our next speaker.
Thank you, Professor Allen. This is wonderful presentation. I think you are suggesting two moves. One is, the first move is that the idea that we can abandon religion as we think religion is source of a lot of violence. This idea has to be rejected first. We can't abandon religion. because religion has been source of violence and non-violence both. The second move is, so the first move is that we need to reclaim religion, and the second move probably is that how do we reclaim religion from being what in Hindi one can call a Shakti-kami religion to Mukti-kami religion. I think Gandhi offers an entire project of this reclaiming religion as a Mukti-kami religion, which probably, I think, is necessary for the contemporary world, which is guided by the greed principle. Capitalism's this fate is going to be very dangerous, and probably there has to be a serious struggle against this kind of capitalism. And in that struggle, religious and non-religious forces will have to come together to create a perspective which can accommodate religion and revolutionary forces together to fight against this kind of situation. I think this is what the Mukti-kami religion has to do, or if I can say this, that what is being offered, a perspective by liberation theology, probably has to be globalized. And this idea of liberation theology, one can find in writings of Gandhi, scattered here and there, but you can also find in writings of other thinkers in India like Tagore and Ambedkar, when Ambedkar talks about religion of rules and religion of principles, and he thinks that we need to reclaim the religion of principles, and if we reclaim the religion of principles, that will become our partner in the struggle for a better society, a non-alienated society. I think that is the idea I think is very exciting, and I see many people in this audience who would like to throw religion out of our life in order to liberate us. So I would like to invite Professor Anuradha Veeravalli to offer her comments, and then we'll move on. Anuradha.
Thank you very much, Professor Allen, for this provocative talk. I have perhaps a disagreement with some formulations, so I will go ahead and begin. One is, I think, let's begin with Gandhi's understanding of what you call the distinction between true religion and institutionalized religion. I think there he was talking about, his phrase would be religion, the religion underlying all religions. So right away he is not giving up on institutionalized religions, but is appealing that they look back at what are the what he would call the primordial religion or the true religion, to use that as a measure of their practices and their interpretation of religion. And there I think the proof of this understanding is that Gandhi at all times believed that religious practices and institutionalized religion was capable of reform. So there was an engagement with a constant engagement in spite of his political, sort of what his political involvement. His engagement with religion and the need for reform, whether it be untouchability with respect to Hinduism, in fact, much against the Hindu majority, which felt that that was not the time to engage in reform and things that would create internal conflict. at the same time, he was willing to talk about conversion and the problem of conversion and its presuppositions that there are religions which are more superior. So there was a constant refrain where he insisted that all religions are different paths to one God, or different names which actually refer to one God. So this constant appeal to a primordial religion and a constant engagement with institutionalized religion, which he was not against. I don't think he rejected it. He was, and his true belief that institutionalized religion was capable of reform, as well as his appeal to institutionalized religion to take it along with the political needs of the day. So I think there is some. Now the other thing about your general statement about religion and war, so I think, before that, I think that Gandhi's understanding that modern civilization, the real problem with it was that it separated matter and spirit. So that its pursuit of materialism was really a pursuit which separated matter and spirit, could not hold them body and soul together, as it were. So for him, religion, in fact, was and not spiritualism was very important. I would want you to consider that the point about religion and all religions is that they are efforts to put matter and spirit together. And each time in history there has been a disagreement. It's about whether matter and spirit can come together or not. So I think that way religion, including institutionalized religion, was very important for Gandhi. The second question I have is that really the violent aspects and the dogmatic aspects of organized and institutional religion have never been far away from the nation state, especially so the modern nation state. And each time the voice of conscience has emerged, it is both religion and the modern nation state that are equally, they are together in attacking the voice of conscience and attacking the principles of civil society. So why is it that you target religion and not the nation state? And I might add that what supports this secular nation state is modern science and the epistemological foundations that divide religion from science. So we are confronted, really our confrontation with religion is not as serious as a modern epistemological foundation on the basis of which all our sciences and arts and religion and politics are studied, where matter and spirit are kept apart. So there is an epistemological foundation for violence. If Gandhi is right about his problem with modern civilization being the dualism of matter and spirit, then it is exactly that which is perpetuated by our sciences, our rationality, that is part of the university. So our abandonment of institutionalized religion as though it is God forsaken and is not a source of appeal is, I think, completely against what Gandhi would have, how Gandhi would have dealt with the problem. The third problem is that this religion and nation state combined, right from whether it is Socrates or Christ, it is always the two who get together, or Joan of Arc, to attack conscience and civil society. What is common to them is an understanding of universalism, unconditional universe, that their truth is unconditional and universal, and that it needs to be imposed on others. And I think that itself is a source of violence. So I think, yes, that these three aspects of, one, the relationship between matter and spirit, science and religion, and science and religion and the nation state. These are questions I would like you to address for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuradha. I think very, very provocative three comments and challenging things fundamentally. Many of us believe that he was opposed to institutionalized religion, but as you are suggesting that whether was he opposed to that or he found a possibility of, or he saw a possibility of transformation of institutionalized religion, because without doing that probably you can't even reclaim religion what you suggest. Second is that the religion and war and this modern epistemic violence that has happened or that is being done by suggesting that spiritual matter has to be separated. In fact, all religions probably suggest that they are integrated. And if we claim religion as spiritual, that doesn't mean that we ignore the material aspect of it. Rather, we start looking at the material world differently. Probably that is what is very interesting thing. And third one is this nation state versus religion. Why are we opposed to religion but not opposed to nation state? Both combine at times and enter into violence field. Thank you very much. I request Professor Ellen to respond first, and then we'll go for other questions. Yes, Professor Ellen. Unmute yourself, Professor Ellen.
Now good? Yes? Okay, well, thank you to Professor Anuradha Veeravalli for your excellent critique. And so what you will be surprised is to learn is 90% of what you presented as critiquing my position, I fully embrace. In other words, so let me try to clarify why I agree with 90% of what you said and why some of it was not emphasized in my presentation. So just, in general, just in like the last 2 weeks, I had to come up with an alternative topic. And so what I tried to do is focus on, original title was Religion Also as a Source of Peace and Nonviolence and so forth. But we shortened the title, which would be challenging, provocative. But I necessarily, and in my presentation, ignored many topics that are central to my approach, my philosophy, my activism, and my understanding of Gandhi and Gandhi-informed contributions. So let me just say, and I had to exclude a lot of things which would have, because of time, would have totally changed what you heard. I do not think in any way that Gandhi was giving up on institutionalized religion. I don't think that Gandhi was against traditional religion, traditional Hinduism, institutionalized religion. In fact, if anything, Gandhi, when he writes about traditional ancient Indian civilization, Hinduism, and even scriptures and so on, if anything, he presents a very romantic, if you just take him literally, he presents a very romantic, idealized view. And then the question is, why is he saying certain things? For example, he says things like, well, ancient Indians and villagers, they understood the truth of nonviolence. They had never attempted to settle arguments through violence, through war. And he tries to show, of course, the most work I've done is on the Bhagavad Gita. And how could Gandhi interpret this? The most influential scripture for him, and so many commentators and hundreds of millions of devotees. How could he interpret it as a gospel of nonviolence? How is this possible? So my position is that Gandhi did not give up on traditional religion. And the danger is the exact opposite, that some people, especially some very traditional, orthodox, sometimes very conservative positions, they take some of Gandhi's formulations to say, see, this shows the superiority of ancient India, of Indian culture, of Indian morality, of Indian salvation. And they are using this in a very chauvinistic and often, for Gandhi, I think, very violent way. So what I didn't put in, and I considered it until, in fact, late yesterday, I was going to have a whole section from my work in phenomenology of religion. That's where I wrote my early books, and where I have, hundreds and hundreds of pages on what is religion. So let me just say, religion with a capital R, this pure, universal, spiritual religion that is beyond institutional, beyond historical, beyond traditional religious beliefs, practices, it doesn't exist. It's an abstraction. And it's such a view, metaphysical, ontological, or whatever view, that's not Gandhi, and it's irrelevant. So there is no religion. There's no religion with a capital R without traditional, institutionalized, culturally, historically, linguistically formulated views of religion. Right? So Gandhi is not just saying, if you believe in this absolute, pure, perfect religion, then you'll be a spiritual being, and just forget about all traditional. This isn't Gandhi at all. In fact, Gandhi is mainly concerned with engaging in a contextual way with people who are limited, imperfect human beings whose practices, prayers, rituals reveal profound truths, profound insights in truth, but also are often contradictory, are often undeveloped, and often lead to divisiveness to oppression, to exploitation, to casteism, to gender oppression, to patriarchy, all these things. And so Gandhi wants to, at the same time, purify, to develop institutional religion, traditional religion. And we shouldn't be shamed by modern scientific people. Gandhi, this is in Hind Swaraj, all the other texts. Don't be shamed as if the West, science, technology, that is superior. That is the truth. So, you are right. Gandhi talks about how one of the problems of modern civilization is this separation of the material, of the body, from the spirit. Gandhi talks about the integration of the whole human being as rational, but as more than rational. The whole, you cannot reduce everything to mind, to reason, or to materialism. He's against that kind of reductionism that destroys the spirit and the whole human being. Okay, but the question is that I tried to raise a little, and that we have to is, and Gandhi is he has this organic, holistic approach that really broadens and deepens. For example, Gandhi says, as opposed to some religious positions and traditional religion, Gandhi says the whole human being is more than rational. Right? There is spirit, there are all these other dimensions of our human mode of being and of truth and reality. But Gandhi says religion can never tell you, your scriptures, your God, can never tell you to do what is blatantly irrational. This is a real critique of a lot of traditional religion on violence and war. Religion is more than rational, but Gandhi says if your God, your scripture, and repeat, tells you to do something that blatantly contradicts what you know is rational, right, is based on empirical evidence and so on, you should ignore the scripture, because I can't believe in such a God or such a reality. So this makes Gandhi much more interesting. What you said was so important about the nation state, religion. Let me tell you, I could have given this whole talk on my critique of the modern nation state. Right? I'm not an apologist in any way to the nation state, just the opposite. And so my target, in terms of my own approach, including Gandhi-informed insights, is not to attack religion and to embrace, in some way, the modern nation state with its modern views of science, a kind of instrumental means-ends view of science, a kind of scientific instrumental rationality, which to me is a very impoverished view, even of science and of reason. And in my own work, and this is interesting, the work I've done on Gandhi, because on the one hand, Gandhi is anti-nationalist. On the one hand, Gandhi wants a weak central nation state, and Gandhi is a decentralist, right? He wants to empower grassroots people from the bottom up, not the top down. He repeatedly quotes Thoreau and others. The best nation state is the weakest nation state. But he also knows that the nation state has a place. It had a place in the struggle against British imperialism, as unifying as part of the movement of Swaraj, freedom from British colonialism and imperialism. So there's this dynamic. And Gandhi, though, is also an internationalist. Gandhi's most profound views are not restricted. In other words, they're universally accessible to people of any nation state. So my concern today, despite what I said or what was presented, I am very opposed to, when we talk about modern nation state, even post-enlightened nation state, this takes many forms. In the United States, our founding so-called fathers, our documents, Constitution, and so forth, they talk about this, borrowing from John Locke and others, including some indigenous people here. They talk about this modern democracy, but in fact, most in the United States have tried to embrace this in a religious way. Oh yeah, this is God's will. We are America, such a religious country. I would say, no, India is much more religious than America, but they don't know 90% of Americans say they believe in God. So for me, the danger today is not the glorification of my upholding the modern nation state. It's how the modern nation state is increasingly so xenophobic, so violent.
Thank you.
And
Take some more now.
good, let's take more. And often very anti-science in its approach. So, okay, Lee, thank you for the very serious challenges. That's great.
So we'll take more questions now, and I will request questions to be short and sharp.
Okay.
To begin with, I think Alok Tandon has raised his hand. So Alok Tandon and then Akansha Kapoor. I can see messages in the message box. Yeah, she is there. She should ask after Alok. Yeah, Alok ji. Please be short and sharp.
Thank you, Manindra, for a very wonderful presentation of Gandhi's position on religion, and especially the distinction he made between the religion as capital R and religion as small. But the point I think Professor Douglas has missed the insight Gandhi gave, how he could travel between the two. Capital R and small r. Gandhi talked that capital R is a universal religion. It is an abstract religion. It is in all the religions. But since religion is doubly interpreted, first by the prophet and then by the interpreters to the masses, in this double distribution, what happens? Religions are, this is done by the human beings, and whatever is done by the human beings is imperfect. That's why all the religions, all the institutionalized religions are imperfect. And I think this is the key insight in Gandhi. Unless and until we accept that insight, we cannot bring any religion to the position of looking into itself and its own weaknesses. Because the fight between the institutionalized religions is about that they think that their religion is the superior, the most superior religion in the world. So I think this insight is to be emphasized. This is my comment. Now the question is that Gandhi was not in favor of conversion, he was in favor of reform. He always talked about that be a good Hindu, be a good Muslim, be a good Christian. He was not saying that you convert into any other superior religion. But the question is, why did Gandhi fail in bringing about Hindus and as well as Muslims together? And this led to the partition of the country.
Thank you, Alok. Thank you.
Established even with the best efforts of Gandhi, it could only be established for some time after the murder of Gandhi. So I think this question is to be addressed. And the relationship, I think, just one line, I think Gandhi failed to appreciate the relationship of religion with identity formation as well as community formation, which is the underlying force today. Thank you.
May I request Professor Patricia Oberoi if she has any question, or if Professor Oberoi has any question or any comment?
I think Professor Oberoi, JPS Oberoi has a question.
Please, please.
Yes,
Yes, please. Professor Patricia Oberoi? I'm not sure.
They have written in the chat box that Professor JPS Oberoi would like to ask.
Yeah, please. Please, Professor JPS Oberoi.
I think they just left the.
They left.
Yes, they left. They've written that he's determined to argue his own case on his theme with me over dinner, and in days to come, thanks to all.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, I think we can, sir, we can take up the question on the chat box.
Yes, and please put your questions in the chat box if you have any. And Akansha Kapoor, if you want to ask by yourself, or Aryaman, if you want to read out the question.
Sure, sir, I'll read it out. And, all right. Akansha says, thank you so much for this thought-provoking lecture. My MPhil research was based on religious violence in Nigeria, taking the case of Boko Haram. So one of the questions I would like to ask you is, even though every religion has fundamentalism, why do we find most of the terrorists are extremely fundamentalist religious groups in Islam? Secondly, how would you explain the state-led persecution of its citizens based on religion in order to establish a homogenized community?
Thank you. Mallikarjun has raised his hand.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Professor Alan. I just wanted to ask if you could speak more on the theme of a righteous war or a holy war. So, if sort of all states sort of have an army based on the principle of self-defense, and a righteous or a holy war would say that in service of truth, once all peaceful means are exhausted, one can take up arms. So if you could just speak briefly on the concept of holy war or righteous war. Thank you.
All right. Is there any more question in the box, Aryaman?
No, sir. Not yet.
So any other question? I don't see any hands raised right now. So should I go for another round? May I request Professor Ellen to respond, and then we can go for another round?
Yes, I'm just checking the live stream once if someone has asked the questions there.
Okay.
I'll look at that.
No, so we can continue.
Right. So I request Professor Ellen to respond.
Yeah. Well, I'll try to be brief. In terms of Alokandran's points, basically what he suggested, I'm in full agreement. And I think descriptively what you described did describe a lot of how Gandhi lived his life and how it was remarkable in that way in making those connections with with capital, pure, universal, spiritual essence, religion, and religions. And his focus was more on religions, actually, but how he engaged that way was quite remarkable and raises a lot of questions. You raised the question of partition and all that, and I've spent quite a bit of time on that because a lot of, to me, in my interpretation, the most remarkable Gandhi, I mean, it was Gandhi was remarkable throughout the decades, but the most developed and remarkable for me was Gandhi in the last 10 years of his life. And I think he really developed economically, politically, in terms of caste and class and so many issues. But a lot of people, I think, do not realize, particularly certain devotees who deify Gandhi and so forth, Gandhi, at the end of his life, at the time of partition, Gandhi was very depressed. He was very depressed. And he felt when it came to Hindu-Muslim communal conflict, it was in first part of the constructive program, he thought, here I've spent 40, 50 years struggling with these issues, and I'm a failure. No one listens. And he looked with horror at the genocide. It was, now, to me, the remarkable thing is, so part of it is we have to learn. Part of the lesson for me is we encounter, in the topic today, at times overwhelming challenges. And how can we be resilient? How can we not give in? Like so many of my friends here, people even who had worked on women's issues, civil rights, when Donald Trump became elected, they were so depressed. And they, in some cases, they still are. They just physically, mentally became passive because they were so overwhelmed with disbelief by trauma that everything they had achieved for the last 50 years was being removed, and it continues to be removed to this day in the United States. And I know many people in India who have the same reaction to the present government and some of what's happening. So for me, part of the lesson is that I wrote about how is it that Gandhi reached down with such despair and depression that he faced. Where did he tap into all of this energy, this remarkable energy, how he lived his life in the last year, 2 years of his life? And so to me, when one reflects on that, and that does include some of the earlier points about mind-body, about the unity of the whole person, about the importance of ideals, a vision, a paradigm shift that gives us hope and inspiration of a world that is not now but could be. So there's a lot there, but I agree. I mean, part of, to me, the strength of Gandhi is that he didn't deny the horror, the rape, all of what was happening, the hatred and so forth that was going on at the end of his life. And he dealt with it often in very remarkable ways. So that's a little bit, in terms of Nigeria and others, that was good. Yeah, many terrorists, not all, but perhaps most terrorists could be, including in the United States, but also in Iran, in the Middle East, in Pakistan, in many places, have been fundamentalists. They have. And fundamentalism, which is an interesting concept. The term fundamentalism was basically a United States Protestant view, and finally. What it means is, in some way, you have the absolute truth, the only truth. That what has been revealed, that is the absolute truth. And everyone else is wrong. Evil, sinners, threats, and so forth. So fundamentalism gives a very simple, clear, Gandhi would say, inadequate, very untruthful, very violent message. And Gandhi tried to deal with it. Gandhi knew fundamentalists, and he knew people who were terrorists, right? And tried to deal with that. But I think you can't reduce all of terrorism to fundamentalism, but certainly fundamentalism gives an easy ideology and practices and so forth for those who are terrorists. And holy war, I think we have to be careful with the term holy war, righteous war. It has many meanings. There's clearly a certain jihadist meaning that is, But even within Islam, there's the greater jihad. There's the sense of the more developed sense of spiritual holy war, in which one is focusing on the war within each of us and within our religions, but within each of us as human beings, in which we are struggling with the forces of good and evil, violence and nonviolence, and so forth, within all of us. And you can find that in Gandhi too, and Gandhi certainly presents, Gandhi sometimes uses the language of the holy warrior, the battlefield, and often he says, don't take it literally. It's not telling you, go out and kill the others. That's the holy war. But it's the battle within each of us that we're facing and struggling with these forces of good and evil. But I think we have to be careful when people start talking about holy war and how to engage them. And the whole last thing I'll just say in terms of, for example, my work in the United States is people who often use holy war language, in some cases, they're not necessarily religious, right? They have a holy war, economic, political holy war, cultural holy war, and so forth, which is very dangerous. And it can justify how you can use the weapons of mass destruction, how you can use capital punishment, how you can use nuclear weapons is all part of that holy war. So those are a few reflections. Do we have some other feedback, questions, comments?
Yes,
We will respond to this second question, Akanksha Kapoor's question. Yes, two questions, I guess. One is that fundamentalism is there in every religion, but why do we find most of the terrorist or extremely fundamentalist religious groups in Islam? That is the first question. And the second one is that how do you explain the state-led persecution of citizens based on religion in order to establish a harmonized community? These are two questions by Akanksha, and there is another question by Harshit Tripathi. In the contemporary times, with religion playing significant role in politics, don't you think that it is breach of democratic fundamentalism? Because we have seen various malpractices being performed. So these are three questions, I think, for you. Two from Akanksha and one from Harshit.
Akanksha, what was the second question that Akanksha raised?
The second question is, how you explain the state-led persecution of citizens based on religion in order to establish a homogenized community?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, in my work, all of these questions have very multi-dimensional, multi-sided responses. So when I try to understand why we usually so often talk about terrorism in terms of fundamentalists and in Islam, I have to first of all be very careful, because I know in the United States, for many reasons, religious but others, there's a lot of Islamophobia. A lot of Islamophobia in which it's easy, in this self-justifying way, to say, look at those horrible fundamentalists. in Iran, especially, and in some other Islamic countries. We're not like them. Right? We don't. And so I find that's very dangerous. And it's used to deflect attention and justify a lot of oppression right now, intolerance being exercised in the United States by Christians, but also by others. So that's one thing. I think in terms of why, though, there has been a lot more focus on Islamic fundamentalists. There are many reasons. I can't understand this, for example, without understanding 9/11 in the United States. And I can't understand 9/11 without understanding why did powerful interest in the United States over the decades support and arm so many fundamentalists, terrorists, jihadists, because it was in the U.S. interest. And this involved in Afghanistan, of course. It also involved in Pakistan, and many other examples. There was the fact that people were violent, were terrorists, did not mean that we opposed them. It was like an enemy of my enemy is my friend. So I have to keep that in mind. But also, for me, I have to give an economic and political and social and cultural interpretation of the modern world, colonialism, imperialism, the destruction of the Ottoman Empire, and all these other examples, in which there was an asymmetrical power relation in the world, dominated increasingly by the non-Islamic modern West, and in which there were certain relationships with the oil interests, with powerful Saudi Arabia, other interests, but that in ways that towards most Muslims felt disempowered, humiliated. Even our powerful economic, religious, political leaders are not speaking in our behalf. So this gave rise to a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, which resulted. It meant that there was a source now easily that could be activated and motivated for terrorism. And Gandhi himself felt that there were certain Indian patriots, as you know, going back, who were even moral, cared about India, felt humiliated, and were led to believe that terrorism against British colonials was the only way. And they were willing to die often in that behalf. So I think, there are a lot of answers to that. And there's always, for me, this balance of how you oppose what we could call any form of terrorism, at the same time trying to understand, and this is what Gandhi informed me, among others, that how do we understand if what unifies us is more fundamental than what divides us? How can we understand that human beings who are human beings like us then take these directions, these paths that to us are so blatantly violent and untruthful and immoral and destructive? And if possible, how can we establish, if possible, some dialogue in which we attempt to transform that situation? But one thing I didn't mention today, it's a big thing, but I wrote about, Gandhi does say that there are some times where no nonviolent response, religious or non-religious, is an option. 95% of the time when religions and non-religions are violent, we have nonviolent options, Gandhi says. But there are cases where there is no option, nonviolent option that can be effective. And so Gandhi does allow for violent responses. This is how I interpret 9/11 or 26/11 in India and many other cases, where in fact the most nonviolent thing you can do, if there are no other options, is to use force, even violent force. Gandhi has passages where killing can count as ahimsa. And Gandhi says, because that may be the most nonviolent approach you have, but never glorify the violence, whether it's to stop terrorists or others. Never glorify it. What you do is not moral. It's tragic. Minimize the necessary violence in order to stop the greater violence, and then do everything in a Gandhi-informed way to change the context, change the variables, so you don't become trapped in endless vicious cycles of violence and terrorism. So that's a little bit the this issue, I won't say much, that was very important about increasingly how state-based persecution of citizens is used to bring about a more homogeneous population. Now, you have the obvious examples in Iran right now, in Israel right now, this new extreme right-wing government and so forth, in Palestine, in the Middle East, and we can give all kinds of examples of that. But it's also true, for me, what is happening in India. Countries and in the United States right now. That is what is happening in countries that like to say, well, we're democratic, we're pluralistic, but they're using state-based control, domination, and persecution of certain sectors of the population in order to achieve a more homogeneous population. That's a very big threat, for example, in the United States today. Defining who is an American, who is patriotic. How do we change our laws to make it harder for blacks, indigenous people, people of color to vote? How do we legislate to remove tax? This is happening right now throughout the United States. How do we, the dominant political group, religious group, change curriculum, education text, including for youngest children, so that they will not read any books about minorities, about the history of slavery, the genocide of indigenous people. They will not be exposed to any books about homosexuals, about transgendered people. And this is what's happening in the United States. And the goal is to create a more homogeneous, what the true America is. It's very dangerous. And of course, Gandhi would find it very violent. So that's, I think, maybe that I commented on all that. It's maybe the last point, yeah.
Aryaman, do you have any other question?
Yes, sir. We have one question in the chat box by Satyam Dubey. He asks that religion, brackets capital R, as Gandhi suggests, includes losing oneself in the service of others and remaining selfless. However, we see that in various religions itself, the human nature is believed to be corrupt and to be controlled through force, like Dhaniti in Hinduism. How do we learn these seemingly contradictory ideas?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So, and in my Gandhi-informed interpretation, Gandhi is very concerned with this. Gandhi knows that there are many religions that, both on the level of their view of the pure religious truth and their practices, believe that human beings are inherently evil. We're not just imperfect, but we are inherently evil. And that's why you need a God and institutional structures which will control and dominate and prevent you from being evil. And in fact, if you act in an evil way, they will punish you. And throughout history, that punishment can be excommunications, lynchings, death, or ostracism, or whatever. So we know that. And India has a long history of that, involving casteism, and on, and so forth. Even more tolerant. I always say India's religious tradition is actually more tolerant than most of the Western-centric religious traditions. So, and to me, in Gandhi's approach, Gandhi also does not say, human beings, Gandhi believes that we are basically good. The strongest force that's accessible to us, truth force, soul force, is love force. Force of compassion, force of service, in which we lose our ego. This is the strongest force for Gandhi. Having said that, Gandhi's under no illusion. Gandhi said human beings, how we are socialized always in this world, we're a mixture. Right? And it's not that people that don't appeal to our greed, our ego, our aggressiveness, our attachments, all this. It's not like they don't understand human beings, but they understand what Gandhi calls our lower nature, our less developed nature. So Gandhi wants to tap into, if we can let go of our ego, as the person said, and we can merge more in this unifying sense of the oneness of reality, and so then we don't have to be so controlled, so dominated. In fact, the best for Gandhi, because it's a gradual struggle, you don't just say, get rid of your ego. Forget about your ego attachment to grades, or job, or rewards. I mean, this is not possible. It's not contextually possible. But so it's gradual. How can we lessen the force of ego? How can we change that balance so in this non-egoistic way, we voluntarily, we don't have to be forced. Part of our Swaraj, our self-rule, is that we give unto ourselves the golden rule. When we perform service to meet the needs of others, we don't feel that we've sacrificed ourselves in this narrow, egoistic way. In sacrificing our ego, in fact, we are fulfilled. This is a more meaningful way of realizing the true self, right? The mind, especially the body, and the whole, the spiritual self. This is how we realize ourselves in the most developed, highest way. So I think this is Gandhi's challenge. Gandhi always says, too many young people, too many students, too many citizens, they're constantly living under fear. They're constantly living under fear. Not just physical fear, that they'll be raped or shot or serious things, but psychological fear, social fear, cultural fear, patriarchal fear that if I speak up at the job or if I speak up in class, I'll be stupid. I'll be shamed. I better not say anything. So people censor themselves, and they live their whole life under fear. So for Gandhi, this is a major part of how we deal with it. As long as we're totally attached to our ego, we're going to be living under fear, always. And so Gandhi says part of how we develop ourselves in this full human way is how we overcome, right? Fear, so that we can become more self-empowering, more self-directed. And in that way, we engage with others, and that's how we develop and flourish as human beings in the world.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen. I think we can close now. Aryaman?
Yes, sir. So we have a small performance prepared for this ending the session. So I would request Namit now to begin with his performance.
Good evening, everyone. This is Namit. I'm going to be performing some compositions that are associated with Mahatma Gandhi. So here it goes. वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीर पराई जाने रे वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीर पराई जाने रे पर दुखे उपकार करे तोए पर दुखे उपकार करे तोए मन अभिमान न आने रे वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे सकल लोक मन सहुने वंदे निदाना करे के रे वाच काछ मन निश्चल राखे धन धन जननी तेनी रे वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे समदृष्टि ने तृष्णा त्यागी परस्त्री जेने मातरे जीवा थकी असत्य न बोले पर धन बझाई हाथ रे वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरो नाम सबको सम्मति दे भगवान ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरो नाम सबको सम्मति देव रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम सीताराम भज प्यारे मन सीताराम 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 भज प्यारे मन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Namit. Excellent. It was wonderful. And I love Gandhi's seminar of this college, particularly for the reason that every time you combine these two things together, singing Gandhi and talking about Gandhi, I think it is wonderful. I think one of the take homes for today is that if we want to create a new strategy to struggle against emerging techno-authoritarian state and also emerging worst form of capitalism supported by this techno-authoritarian state, we do not have much option except to go back to Gandhi. This is the first take home I take. Second, I think the anxiety about inter-community relationship. I do not find any other option to resolve this crisis of inter-community relationship, globally speaking, which is emerging in a big way once again. I think modern state and modernity has failed in this completely. People like Habermas also came back to religion after 9/11. And I wish Habermas would have read Gandhi to understand the alternative available, which is challenging hypermodernity. And I think these are two take homes that we must carry home. And if we want to understand Gandhi, we need to understand through the themes that these two songs present to us. Thank you very much, Professor Ellen Douglas. Thank you, Anuradha. Thank you, Satish, for inviting me for this, and Aryaman to organizing such a wonderful discussion this evening. Thank you.
Vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, everybody. Yes.
Before we end, I think we will be formally giving a vote of thanks. Bhumika, you can go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. So, on behalf of the Gandhi Study Circles, I am Bhumika Arya, and it gives me an immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks. I would really like to thank Dr. Ellen Sir for this wonderful webinar. I would also like to thank Manindra Thakur Sir, Anuradha Ma'am for chairing the seminar, and the convener of Gandhi Study Circles, Dr. Satish Kumar Shah, the president of Gandhi Study Circles, Pratap Singh, last but not the least, all the lovely audience who took out their time and made this webinar a great success. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure having you guys. Anyone who wishes to revisit this webinar can watch it on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. I can reshare the link on the chat box, and you can subscribe to our channel, and you can visit other seminars or webinars, revisit the other seminars and webinars again. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Alan, Professor Anuradha Veeravalli, and Professor Manindra Nath Thakur for being so kind and spending valuable time this evening. Thank you again on behalf of Gandhi. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hope to meet you again soon. Professor Ellen will organize something soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good, thank you.